Okay, we're recording.
Okay.
Hi, everybody.
Let's see, I'm Tom Greene. I'm an English professor in the English department. Been teaching at Northern Essex since 2008, teaching college English since 1991.
My name is Meredith and I teach philosophy and world religions. Well, I'm really excited because we're team teaching the learning community, Toys, Dolls, Monsters, that combines literature, mostly sci-fi, with philosophical questions. So we'll be exploring different themes, primarily through the lens of literature, short stories.
It's a combination of English 102 and Philosophy 101, and it's called Toys, Dolls, and Monsters. And it's kind of the learning community aspect means that the two of us are teaching in the same room at the same time for 2 class periods twice a week. So you walk into the room and both of us will be in the room and we sort of take turns going back and forth, talking about English and philosophy in turn, or, an hour of this, an hour of that, whatever, back and forth. And then you do shared assignments that are turned into both of us. And we both read them and give feedback and coordinate on the grade. And the nice thing about this class is that you get the full 6 credits for the 2 classes. You get the 2 classes, Philosophy 101 and English 102, counting on your transcript as things toward graduation and transfer and so forth. They're required classes. And also that you get not just one or the other in isolation, but the 2 sort of melding, because we combine our content, we combine our ideas, we combine our presentation in such a way that we're kind of moving back and forth between the realms of English writing, literature, and philosophy, and interrogating and questioning these big ideas and thinking about the connections between them and having an ongoing conversation with each other and with the class about all of this stuff. And so it creates this wonderful combination of different elements that work together in a really
Students
unique
get
way.
the benefit of 2 professors in the classroom from 2 different disciplines who have insights that they share that, again, make for, I think, a deeper learning experience. Plus, you have the same cohort of students taking these classes. And so you get comfortable with each other. And often, because you're with the same fellow students, and Professor Greene and I, the learning runs deeper.
It's hugely fun. I really look forward to this class. I never miss a class. I can't wait to get there. Sometimes people linger around after class or have conversations after class at lunch or go to somebody's office. I mean, it's really a big, long, ongoing conversation that goes for a whole semester. It's really intense and fun and interesting and engaging. So it's one of my favorite things. I really hope that we get to do it again soon.
Well, I think philosophy can sit well with a lot of different disciplines, but particularly, combining it with sci-fi. I think a lot of sci-fi raises particular philosophical questions, like with Blade Runner, for instance. And it raises questions about what does it mean to be human? What's the difference between AI and humans? Or, you get Ursula K. Le Guin's short story, The Ones Who Walk Away from Meals, which raises questions about whether it is morally legitimate to use a child for the happiness of the utopia, right? In called Amilas. So I think that sci-fi, there's lots of stuff in sci-fi that I think gets people to think, do I have free will? Or questions about dystopian futures if we keep on choosing to live the same way. So there's lots of parallels, and part of the reason I wanted to teach this is I learn a lot from Tom, and Tom comes at things from a different discipline and a different lens than I do. And I think for students who see us interpreting these stories differently or reacting to the philosophy differently, it deepens the learning for all of us who are in a learning community. And I think on top of that, the learning is reinforced because you're coming at philosophy not just from the angle of straightforward philosophers, but also from the angle of literature. So I think, and you have the same students taking both classes, and you get more comfortable in the discussions. In the discussions, you got two professors for the price of one who are sitting there engaging with the ideas. And it ends up making for really, I think, deeper, not only deeper learning, but more interesting conversations in the classroom. And I think it shows that, there isn't just one right way to interpret, rich philosophical texts or rich, literary works, that it teaches you at college level, yeah, it's okay to have different interpretations so long as you ground them in the text. And I think that, sometimes Professor Greene challenges me and sometimes I challenge him in friendly ways. So it also teaches that you can have differences and still get along. And sometimes we even revise our views in reaction to what the other says in the classroom. And I think it's good modeling for us all to see.
Well, Meredith is awesome. All the students rave about her, that she's a really great teacher. People love her, and they write, great letters and come back and visit her and say hello. And she really, really does a great job of asking questions to get students thinking, presenting information in a way that students can understand it, really challenging people in the way that you kind of picture the college really should do. So I really wanted to work with Meredith, and we just have some shared interests over in the realm of kind of science fiction-y or speculative fiction stuff about especially robots and artificial intelligence and androids, and how those things in literature and in movies intersect, how those are metaphors for things about human nature, about psychology, about the meaning of existence and the meaning of life and the meaning of meaning, and all of these really big questions about, why are we here and what is our place in the universe? It's the highlight of the class in general, I think, is the actual live class sessions where we're all present in the same room for that really like nice extended period of time, which gives us time to really dig into and explore ideas in a way that you can't always do in the shorter class session.
The first time we did the learning community, the highlight was the very last class for me, because a lot of the students were so actively engaging in the material. We had, instead of having a traditional final exam, we had people give a quick mini presentation on what they learned. And some of what we heard students say about what they learned was just so gratifying. We barely even spoke during that class because a lot of the students drew interesting connections themselves between the philosophy and the literature,
and the way that the intersection of the ideas and the ideas flying back and forth, and the questions that are raised, and people's experiences, and the humor and the fun of just having these conversations sort of brings people to a different way of thinking, a different level of understanding of the kinds of things that we talk about.
And also literature can sometimes be interpreted in different ways depending on the philosophical lens you put on it, or philosophers might raise problems that aren't raised in the short writing or the novel that you're reading. So it can deepen the learning by coming at it from more than one discipline.
Yeah, it's really great to be in a room with another, highly educated, highly qualified, very experienced professor, because it completely keeps me honest. And when Meredith challenges me on something and then I have to defend my position, or when I challenge her and she has to defend her position, it really is a different experience from me just being somebody up at the front of the room who's saying a bunch of stuff that everybody believes. It really brings home the idea about how competing ideas have to be supported, have to really earn their place in the marketplace
Highlights
of ideas.
for me were getting to learn about some of the literature I was reading from Professor Tom Greene's angle. So I've learned some interesting nuggets of wisdom just watching Professor Greene lecture. he asked me, hey, what do you think of this particular character? Can you apply any philosopher to it? And I started talking about the way they presented the religion, this particular religion, and it's showcased in the short story. And I tied it to Camus' line of thinking. And it ended up being a really profound discussion we had with students, Professor Greene and myself, about how you could look at some of the ways people were living that were meaningless because they were trapped in these routines of, you know, doing arduous things only to have them undone. And I think it really resonated when we applied the philosophy, a different philosophical outlook through the lens of Camus to some of the plot line.
And also the way that that challenges me to think of new things. I mean, I learn really a lot from being in this class because, you know, I'm used to my ideas and I'm used to the ideas of a lot of my students that I've heard before. And so students who bring in new ideas and Meredith bringing me new ideas and then me bringing those new ideas sort of sets this all in motion where we come to more and more deeper understanding of the things that we're talking about.
And because we had forged such a comfortable bonds with each other, people said, hey, can we all bring in food and have a potluck? And so we were eating lunch and sharing food. And I think that just made for a stronger sense of community in the class while people presented. And so it was really wonderful. And it was so boisterous. We had to have another professor come and tell us we were too noisy. But it was a lot of fun. We had a lot of laughter.
The research, right? We got to get to the empirical data. The research shows that students who sign up for these combined learning communities that have the two classes with the two teachers together are more likely to complete that class or the two classes. And so in terms of getting through school and doing better, you know, it's worth investing the time into that block of time to take the two classes because you do the class, it's fun and interesting, it's challenging, and then you graduate, you get out of the class at the end of the semester and you've got the 6 credits and you've got the 2 requirements fulfilled and you can move on with your life, changed though it may be. Absolutely. I think it's for some students, at least, it's definitely almost like a transformative experience that people start off a little bit doubtful about the way that things are going to go. But, you know, we're all really nice people. We're all very respectful and we're interested in hearing what each other have to say. And we sort of start off in the real world of familiar ideas and gradually move further and further outward into less familiar ideas and more challenging questions and more in-depth examination of the large questions that everybody deals with in their lives. And I remember there was one high point a couple of semesters ago when we did it, where I think it was Meredith asked a question, which was kind of a question with a challenge that where the answer might be this or it might be that, or it might be a certain kind of answer. And one of the students just shrugged and said, in this class, I don't think that I'm going to be able to answer that question. And there's just something about the class that made it seem like the obvious answers were just not going to be the kinds of answers that would go with those questions. And at that point in the semester, which was only about halfway through, and we still had a long way to go in terms of our investigation and how we went, people had already gotten into the idea that the whole idea of these questions and these issues is that they're challenging and they're thought-provoking and they're in some cases, like I said, transformative. You know, they really change your view of how you look at the way that things are.
I also thought it was a highlight when we had students give their oral presentations on their version of the utopia. We got to hear students who normally didn't talk actually, you know, because everyone had to explain part of the utopia they had been building as a group. And it was wonderful to hear the different voices of people who normally are introverted and would mostly listen, and then hearing what they had to say about their vision of the utopia. The oral presentation, students told me that they got a lot out of those, that some of them even remember. One of them just brought up, who is in one of my other classes, said, oh, I still remember so-and-so talking about the pods. And you know, it was nice to hear you know, a student, this was almost 2 years ago now, referring to the oral presentations and saying he really enjoyed hearing other people's visions of utopia. Absolutely not. Absolutely
No,
not.
absolutely not. This is a class for everybody, people who are, you know, serious nerds like me, and also people who know nothing about science fiction and don't really necessarily like science fiction, that we really do cover all of the stuff that you need to know to be able to grasp. And it's not like we're going with complicated or esoteric or difficult kinds of science fiction-y issues. This is really about human issues.
And, I hope, I think that I think people will discover, even if they've never read any sci-fi, it's a pretty amazing genre. We're not choosing esoteric materials that you have to read a huge long series of. A lot of it's short stories. So I'm really excited. We're going to be trying out some David Chang. We belong to a book club, Professor Tom Greene and I, and one of the authors, Chang, is so amazing. We're going to incorporate into the course. So I'm really excited for that material.
I mean, for example, this is not a class where, when we talk about robots, for example, this is not a class where you have to know everything ever written about robots in all of science fiction history, or even, care about robots or like robots. Because the way that we think about robots is that a robot is a metaphor for a human, that when somebody puts a robot into a piece of literature or a movie, it's about trying to express some idea about human nature, about some refined aspect of human nature. And so if you're a human and you know things about human nature, and you could read a story about a robot, then you can make that connection. And that's the kind of thing that we're looking for.
But you do not need to have any background in philosophy or any background in sci-fi to take a course like this. I think we're asking students a lot of very human questions, like broad-based human questions, like what does it mean to be human? Am I free? Can we have knowledge? Is everything an illusion? And I think some of the stories we're picking are really, really powerful engines for analyzing that.
It's the usual pitch that we have X number of students in the class at this point in registration, and the administrators start to look at that class and see how there may not be enough students to make it happen, and then they want to cancel it. And if it cancels, nobody wants to take it. So the sooner people sign up, the more that number goes up, the more chance it has that the administrators will say, okay, this class can run. And so that's really the critical zone, is where we have nearly enough to run the class. We really need people to sign up as soon as possible to show the deans that there's interest and that there's demand for the class, and it'll happen. Otherwise, it'll get shut down and we'll have to go off in our different directions and teach separate classes.
I am hoping students will sign up for this. It is more expensive, not for you, but for the college to run learning communities, because they're paying for 2 professors as opposed to 1 to teach both classes. We're both always there in each other's classes. So they want to see that there is real interest. And I really do believe that it is in the students' best interest to take a course like this because of the deeper learning experience. But if you don't sign up for it soon, they're going to assume there's not the interest, and they might actually remove the class as a learning community.
Ask around about Meredith Gunning, ask around about me, Tom Greene, find out what other students are saying about our teaching approaches and what kind of experience it is to be in our classes. And take people's advice.
I would say it's going to be exciting. Professor Tom Greene has actually published in sci-fi, but he also knows his sci-fi genre really well. You'll learn a lot from him. You'll get to see 2 professors coming at things from a different angle, but also you will not be bored, because we are both so passionate about the material that I think it becomes infectious to others. Plus, you'll get 6 credits. And everyone has to take the Comp 2. And for psych majors, if I found out the student in the elevator was a psych major, I'd be like, this course is right up your aisle, because you have to take a philosophy and you have to take a Comp 2. You're knocking out 2 birds.
Well, I'm not. It is true. I'm not gonna. I'm gonna resist bragging about my talents. I'll brag about Meredith's talents, no problem. But what I will say is that based on what I've been told by students about this class before, is that it really does kind of change the way that you look at your reality. Before the class, you kind of live in one kind of world, and you come out of the class and you live in a different kind of world. hopefully a better world, presumably a better world, but at least a world that is more complex and rich and that you have a different kind of understanding of in a good way. And that's really the idea, we hope, of what college is supposed to be about, is these classes that challenge your assumptions and challenge your experiences and make you think about things in a new way.
If you take this course, I guarantee you, you will not regret it. It'll make you think about your own humanity, whether there's a God, are we free? So many great questions come up through the lens of sci-fi and philosophy, and self-identity issues. So you will not regret it. I guarantee you. You will find this a pretty amazing and somewhat rare experience to be able to take classes that are team taught. So seize the day.